Welcome
What do
at
you got me
Raynor
doing?
Naturopathic Massage Worldwide Podcast. And today is our first episode, and this is very exciting because we are with the creator of Raynor Massage. Brandon Raynor is with us today. Hi, Brandon.
Hi, how are you? Good to
I'm
talk to
very
you, Lily.
good. Yeah.
And nice to talk to everybody out there as well.
Yes, that's right. We've been talking for quite a while, and I mean, you have so many YouTube people like following you on your channel. Like how many? Like 80,000 or something?
Yeah, we got 80,000 subscribers. It just I think we just hit that maybe today or yesterday or something like that. So that's a lot of people, you know,
This is incredible. Yeah, yeah, for
and
sure.
40
And
million views or something. So
is
yeah,
it?
it's
Wow.
it's a lot of people like it. Some people don't, but what can you do?
That's
You
right.
get that in life, don't you? I can't
Yeah,
please all the people all the
uh,
time.
it's not possible for sure. So
Uh,
yeah, I think we were thinking of creating a podcast to really explain and show the philosophy behind Renault. Like to be honest, for me, it has been you know that I told this story so many times, but it has been so transformational for myself, like life changing. That and it's I can see that with my clients and all the students that are coming, every year to see you and I mean 80,000 people on YouTube. It shows something. It's so special. And I reckon that would be good to, we were thinking that would be good to actually go back to the origin, really, where all the story started. How did you come with this amazing idea?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it is a long story.
That's all
I'm
right.
getting old now, 54. But so basically, I was studying at university after leaving high school, and I was studying, comparative religion and different systems of government and philosophy and psychology and political economics and education and society and child growth and development. And I was kind of like, where am I going with all of this, And, I wanted to do something practical to help people because in the end, philosophy just, kind of comes down to, people
Yeah.
don't really know much and, skepticism wins out. And psychology, it's only limited and they do a lot of experiments that I didn't agree with. And anyway, a friend of mine ended up talking with me and we were discussing what we were doing. We're both in the same situation. And we came across the idea of naturopathy. So I ended up studying to be a naturopath. This is going back to 1990. By the time I first started, I was in university in sort of 87, 88, did a bit of traveling and that sort of thing. But by 1990, I was like, yeah, I think the idea of being a naturopath was really good. In fact, I'd never had a massage or a massage, as they say. They did in the United States and Canada, they use the word massage. I got a story about that later on too. But anyway, yeah, I'd never had one, and it was my first year of my naturopathy course, which was 4 years, was learning a remedial massage course, and I liked it. It was good, But when I went to work at a health food shop in Sydney called Macro Whole Foods, which is now quite famous in Australia because it's owned by Woolworths, and but back then it was like the best health food shop in Australia, and I was very much into. I'd become vegetarian when I was 17, and I was very much interested in food and nutrition and things like that. And that was one of my passions. And this shop was just all organic and biodynamic and things like that. And I used to just work there while I was studying, like because I was studying my correspondence. So I used to just get big bags of sunflower seeds and put them into small bags and that sort of thing. But they used to have a Shiatsu clinic upstairs, and I'd never heard of Shiatsu before. And it's Japanese acupressure massage. And I'd go up there, and sometimes I'd feel like I was in a like what they talk about brain fog, or you're feeling a bit out of it or whatever. And I'd always go up there, get a treatment, and I'd feel like sharp again. So it affected me not just physically but mentally as well. And that's what I really loved about Shiatsu. And that was my introduction to you know basically Japanese medicine, which is its origins are from Chinese medicine. So working with meridians and energy and that sort of thing. And I was extremely impressed by the treatments I got. So I ended up some of the practitioners there invited me to their school, which was called the Shiatsu Ryoho Center in Sydney. And I went along there, and the director, he ended up invited me into the class, and he basically he felt around my tummy, which they call the hara in Japanese. He didn't even touch it, and he goes, "Oh, you got a sore ankle on right side. And I don't think it was because he was watching me walk in or anything like that, but I think he actually, you know, he picked up on something that had been a chronic problem for me, and I was really impressed by that. So I ended up studying at the Shiatsu Ryoho Center with a guy named
Mm.
Andre Gospodaljic, and I'm probably mispronouncing his name, but you know, and that was a fascinating experience. I spent about a year studying Shiatsu, and that was really opened my mind up to the power of Oriental medicine, and how good, you know, good quality body work could be for the mind, body, and spirit. And
Mm.
then later I left Sydney, which is where I was living at the time, and moved up to Byron Bay, which was like back then it was like an alternative lifestyle hub, and a lot of healers. And that nowadays it's a very expensive, it's the most expensive place to live in Australia, apparently.
Mm.
But back then it was very interesting, and there was all sorts of different practitioners there, and also in the Gold Coast. And I was influenced by a number of people. One of them was Carol Starr, who was did rebirthing or integrated breath therapy, and she taught me about how deep breathing, um, with certain techniques, can bring up emotions and clear stuff. And I ended up clearing out a lot of things that I'd had from my childhood. I'd had a bit of a difficult past in as a teenager, you know, growing up in Miami in America, and getting alopecia when I was 12, and, you know, getting in people picking on me and that sort of thing. So I cleared a lot of that, and a lot of anger come up, and a lot of, you know, some sadness and that sort of thing as well. And I was pretty blown away by the power of integrative breath therapy. And then at the same time, there were other practitioners that influenced me, like this guy, John Jones. Everybody used to say, oh, if you go to John, he was in Byron Bay at the time, it's going to hurt like hell, but you're going to feel a lot better. And
Wow.
so I went, and he was a martial artist. He knew a lot about Chinese medicine, also about martial arts and that sort of thing. But he taught me about how getting in deep is very, very powerful and getting the roots of tension out. So I had some big lower back pain, and he ended up working very deeply into my legs and into my, you know, all through the area, and didn't necessarily work directly on the pain itself. But he really, you know, helped with all of that. And yeah, he worked me right up to my pain threshold, basically. and
Wow.
and I was blown away by that. It was like, wow, you can work people really deeply, you know, because a lot of the time when I've been taught massage before, shiatsu wasn't that painful, but
Mm.
his was painful but very effective. So I started to like integrate different aspects of these sorts of things, and then I went back to Sydney, and I was working in a place called Herbal Solutions at Bondi Beach. When I was working at Herbal Solutions, I was in charge of the massage department, as well as being a naturopath and prescribing herbs. And there was a guy named what was his name? Peter. I've forgotten his last name, but so he ended up teaching me some work called loin work, which was I'd never heard of before, and I've never really heard of since. But there was
What
a
is
guy in America that was teaching very deep abdominal massage, and I'm not
ah
sure the exact spelling of it. I've Googled it a bit, and there's a little bit of information. But he would go really deep into my abdomen, and he would talk about how deep abdominal massage could fix lower back pain. And so coming from the front helped the back. And not many people were doing deep abdominal massage. And so that really kind of got me interested in the effectiveness of abdominal massage. And then I was, you know, obviously continuing working on people throughout. And I still remember the first time I saw a guy have like a chi or emotional release. And I was working on him. He'd gone through a lot of stress. He'd just come out of or going through a divorce, or coming out of a divorce, and he was really tight. And I ended up working him quite deep, got into his belly, and his whole hands were shaking, and he was just, you know, having the full emotional release. And I'd never seen that before. So it was a combination of the deep breathing mixed with deep massage, mixed with, you know, a lot of the energetic work from shiatsu and working with meridians to a certain extent. And so that made me kind of go, wow, I was pretty blown out by that, you know, and like, wow. And I thought I actually was, you know, quite concerned about him. Thought, oh, I hope he's not going to die or something like that. But he didn't.
you
So lucky, otherwise I could be in jail, you know.
yeah.
But he didn't, and he survived, and he felt a lot better, and he released a lot of things and emotions. And so it was like, wow, I didn't realize what could happen with such powerful stuff about the energy movements and the you know, just the deep breathing and the whole thing. The whole lot started to combine together. This was like maybe 2000, 2001.
Mm.
And I was just starting to teach, because people would come in and ask me, oh, you know, I'd really like to learn what you're doing. And I'd say, well, I was a bit, I didn't want to be arrogant, but I said I could probably teach you more in 4 or 5 days than they'll teach you in a year at one of the big schools, because a lot of people are coming to me actually back then that been doing like 6 months of training at one of the big massage schools in Sydney. And they were like, oh, I'm really disappointed. This isn't what I expected it to be. They were just rote learning muscle names and never really doing anything. And the massage itself was just very superficial. So they would ask me about that, and they go, and I go, well, look, I'll teach you, what I know. And so that's when I first started teaching. I actually taught a bit of Shiatsu in 1997 in Byron Bay, but by actually just, I think it was 1999, I first started teaching in
Oh,
Sydney, and then
wow.
2000. So I was practicing and teaching at the same time. And then by about 2000, it was just very successful. And I was traveling. We'd moved to Brisbane at that stage. I was teaching in Brisbane, teaching in Sydney, and then I started teaching in Melbourne and teaching. And, it just started to boom. And I was just having huge class. People loved it, basically. And so by 2001, I think I was teaching in New Zealand, teaching in Canada, 2001 or 2002 in America, in England. So just those early years, it was just expanding. And
Wow.
again,
Oh,
great
that's nice.
success all over. People loved it. And at the same time, or just previous to that, I was also learning. I'd done my diploma in Chinese herbal medicine,
Mm.
and I've done a diploma in Ayurvedic medicine, which is the traditional medicine of India. And they're looking at different, again, the energetic systems of the body and the connection between the mind, body, and soul. And all of that theoretically fascinated me. And I started to integrate, that into the practical world. As well as getting a lot of, I traveled to Thailand, and I did it later on. I did a Thai massage course as well in America, and so I started to develop more of a holistic perspective on, first of all, who or what is the human being, and the energetic systems underneath it, the emotions, the spirit, that kind of thing, and how that works with tension, and then looking at the different massage systems from around the world. So I spent a bit of time in Japan, and training with different Shiatsu therapists, and realizing that there's actually quite a few different approaches to Shiatsu, not just Zen Shiatsu, but all sorts of different teachers. It's like often like a martial arts school has a teacher, and then they have their own particular style. And that's how Shiatsu is. And I realized even in China, I went to Hong Kong, even in China, a lot of the acupuncture teaching and Chinese medical teachings were according to different teachers. Some of that got standardized with the communist revolution, and they didn't like free thinking teachers as much anymore. But when you look at the whole perspective, it starts to become very interesting. And I moved to Hawaii in 2005, and spent a lot of time looking at the Hawaiian philosophies of healing, especially understanding what they mean by the spirit of aloha, but also the whole, again, more of a spiritual perspective on the human being, and using some of the Hawaiian massage techniques as well. Although by that stage I was living in the most actually native Hawaiian part of Hawaii, which is Makaha. And when I practiced there in some of the parks and things like that, I still remember one guy saying to me, my auntie do Lomi Lomi ain't nothing like that. And it was just really sweet. But it was just like, by that stage, it was just getting quite powerful what I was practicing on people, and people were starting to realize that. So all of that was in the early, 2005, and that sort of thing. And then, basically it just continued on, and I learned more and more, teaching all over the world, traveling. And in between teaching, I'd go and get treatments. I'd go get treatments all over America, Canada, New Zealand, you know, um, Australia, England, Europe, and just what's going on, as well as Japan, Thailand, and that sort of place, and just try and seek out some of the best therapists. I learned a lot actually. I forgot to mention, one of my teachers actually in the late '90s was a Japanese therapist at the Hilton Hotel, and he trained at the Tokyo School of the Blind. And because in Japan, a lot of the best therapists were blind, or partially, he was partially blind, and he taught me so much just about feeling energy. It was kind of like almost part of traditional Japanese culture. They even talk about like the word "how are you" is genki desu ka, which means how is your ki, basically, and the word for weather is tenki. So, but he taught me the sensitivity required too to energy, which is definitely more a part of Japanese culture. And to, then I started to massage with my eyes closed. I got a lot of treatments from blind people in Thailand as well, and just starting to understand what it felt like to kind of go into that realm of just sensitivity. And again, I had to change my sort of Western mind frame. I was coming out of university with all the philosophy and psychology. I was very much a head person, and
Yeah.
even learning all of this stuff, I had to come out of my head into my heart, into my intuition and my feeling side. And so I had to deprogram myself, in fact, because I realized a lot of that stuff's not important. A lot of the intellectual knowledge is not as important as actually just being able to feel
That
and
is
being able to
something.
communicate with people.
I just bounce back on what you're saying, because this learning, this technique, this philosophy, we need to release ourselves, and the more we release, the better we are. And I can see that, like, in the 7 years of practicing, like, the more I release, the better I am. And as you say, this intuition, this connection to the heart really comes, and we feel more and more. And it's true that that is the key. And yeah, and
That is the key, and that's why I wanted to simplify things, like when I teach. And I was like, my idea was, if I don't use it, I'm not going to teach it to people, because it's a distraction, in
mm,
fact, and that's how I felt with a lot of too much intellectual knowledge with massage. Became a distraction, and for some people, I noticed that it went to their ego. I had a lot of problems when I first, back in the early, like mid 2000s to about the 2015, a lot of conflict when I started teaching in Canada with the registered massage therapists over there, because they did 3,000 hours of training, and they were really upset that I was teaching and doing, 5, 10, 15 days of training with people. And I had a bunch of treatments from people over there, and I was just like, wow, you guys can really talk the talk, but their feeling wasn't very good. That with my experience, I'm not saying all registered massage therapists are like that, but the ones I had, it was like a lot of intellectual knowledge, but some of my students were doing better after 4 days, in terms of actually giving a good quality massage, where they tune into the person's chi, they tune into, because so much of the massage training is all about the body, and it's about the physical aspects, the muscles. But, I always say, the muscles are, they're not as important as the soul, as the spirit of the person, because you massage a dead body, there's nothing, you're never going to get any good result, because the person's gone. And so it's all about, to me, the knowledge of massage in the traditional cultures like China, Japan, Thailand, Hawaii. It's all based on the spirit. It's all based on working with the person as a spiritual being, and that for me is what really made sense to me. And I realized that, once you get a person, it all comes back to that initial experience of getting shiatsu. For me, it's like, it's not just about the physical, it's about aligning your mind, body, and soul together, and feeling comfortable in your body, and getting rid of the emotions that are holding you back, not just the physical. So anyway, so I learned a lot. I challenged a lot of people. A lot of people hated me in the massage industry in Canada, and saw me as this major threat. It's kind of died down in the last 5 or 6 years, but for a while there, it was like, there's just a lot of opposition, to and that sort of thing. But we kept teaching, and we've trained thousands and thousands of people all over the world, and the proof is in the pudding, because a lot of people are doing fantastic work, and people are getting great results, all over the world. And we taught a course in India, we've taught a course in Malaysia, Singapore, um, let me see where else, Namibia. Well, me and my wife taught in Namibia, in Southern Africa, and we taught, one of my teachers was teaching in South Africa. So we've spread these teachings all over, but my knowledge has evolved too, in the 30 years that I've been practicing. I can see what I was doing 10 years ago is different from what I'm doing now, and what I'm basically trying to do more and more as I grow as a therapist is to tune more into energy, and to work with people's breath. Like, for example, what I've seen myself change in the last 5 to 10 years is to really just work people right up to their threshold without taking them above it, and working in that breath cycle, but not pushing people to that point. I used to be what I call a bit more of a yang practitioner, where I try and push people, and realize, and then I realized it's not me doing it. I got to work with the person. So more and more about the partnership model of medicine, working with the breath, working with that person, encouraging them to let go, but in the end, realizing it's up to them. You know, that sort of thing. So again, it's not so much like, oh, I've learned all these new techniques. It's about it's about tuning into people, you know, and working with people, you know, and that's to me the evolution. What makes a good therapist? The tools are like a tool or a tool bag. You know, having tools is like, I got my tools in a tool bag if you're a carpenter, you know. But it's about knowing how to use them to build something beautiful, you know, and that's what I call life sculpting. You know, we're taking somebody who's kind of, you know, I mean, they're beautiful underneath, but they might be covered in a lot of mud and a lot of dirt, you know. And they need some chipping away sometimes. And this, but you can't just have tools. It's like if you don't know how to use a jackhammer, you're just going to create a mess, you know. But so you need to the perception of what is the beautiful person underneath that straight jacket of tension, you know, that's restricting them
Yeah.
from being their true self. You need to be able to perceive that and go, what tool am I going to use to crack that straight
Yeah.
jacket and bring out the beautiful soul of the person so that they
I
can
mean,
shine forth, you know?
who doesn't have tension? Have you ever felt someone with no tension?
A couple of times out of
Have
thousands of
you?
people, there's only been a couple of people. One guy, when I was working in Sydney, probably, oh, this is again, probably 1998. This guy used to do yoga all the time. And he was real. He'd get me working under his armpits to find tension and stuff like that. And that was his whole thing. And then one time he'd done a commercial for that game Twister, you know, where like people twist
Yeah.
into these, and then he came back full of tension. It was the first time he could, but I got rid of it really quick. So this guy did a lot of yoga. So, you know, I did, and a couple of, but most people that do yoga, I find are still quite tight, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can think of the people that I've met that are almost tension free, and there's less than 1%. But there are people that are like that, and I've got people to the point of being tension free, which is our goal, you know. And it's wonderful to see because I still remember people coming in really tight, and you massage them, and everything hurts, and it's all painful. And 3 or 4 sessions later, they're like, "Are you going as deep? Because nothing hurts anymore." And I'm like, "I'm going 3 times as deep," you know, because
Yeah.
once the tension's gone, it doesn't hurt. It's just like there's the flow, you know, which is what we talk about, the flow of the chi, you know, the flow of the life force through the person. And that's what we're trying to do, get the stagnant life force to flow again.
Mhm.
And so yeah, it's but that's what makes it so wonderful working with what I call a green light. A green light is somebody who's there, you know, they're committed to getting better, and they're not fighting you or resisting you or, you
Mm.
know, wanting for some reason to hold on to their emotional baggage, you know. So working with the green light's wonderful in that way. It's a life sculpting, you know,
Mhm.
and you're just trying to bring out that wonderful true essence of the person. And
Yeah, there
nothing
is.
more. I can't think of anything more satisfying. It's hard work. It's not like it's easy, you know. And sometimes I feel like I always use the analogy like we're a glorified sewage worker because we're working in amongst other people's stagnant
Energy.
crap, you know.
Yeah.
And that's what we do, and that's what somebody has to realize when they come and do this kind of work in particular. You know, that's what you're doing. It's like being a nurse cleaning bedpans. You know, if you don't like that dealing with shit, don't work in this profession. You know, the same as a nurse, right? So, but for me, it's like, okay, I can deal with that. You know, that's I just like to see the beauty once that person's got rid of this luggage, this baggage that they're holding on to. It's wonderful because you see people's eyes brighten up, and you know the old saying, "The eyes, the windows to the soul," and you just see people light. They feel lighter. They feel more alive. You know, and I can't think of anything more satisfying than that, and I can't think of anything more other ways to help people. Obviously, there's nutrition and, you know, there's yoga and stuff like that, but for me, this is one of the best ways that I've ever found. And so I've just that's how it's evolved. It's like my passion and my love for it. And you know, I've learned different things from all around the world and different, you know, I've integrated what I can, and I've just kept on that focus. But I've tried to, you know, that follow it, the philosophy, keep it simple, stupid, you know.
Yeah.
Like I just try to keep the goal there. The goal is always find and get rid of tension. And anything, any technique or any philosophy, anything, breathing, whatever, or even if it's might be cracking a joke with somebody, it's always with that goal of finding and getting rid of the tension, you know. And so if you keep that goal in mind, then the rest builds on that. Otherwise, some people just have a goal of doing a routine massage. You know, like, oh, I'm going to do, you know, 5 strokes like this, 2 strokes like that, and get it all done in 60 minutes. They're not even having that goal of finding and, you know, but for me, I just go, let's find and get rid of anywhere where this person's holding on to chronic residual tension.
Mm.
And then if they're a green light, you know, that's where the magic happens, you know,
Yeah.
until that person becomes tension free. And then it's just like, okay, well, there's nothing left to do. We've done the job. Then we move them into maintenance massage, you know. So I always talk about two types of massage: excavation and maintenance.
Mm.
And excavation, most people need excavation and that could be 10 hours, that could be 40. Some people it's 100, 200,
Mm.
especially elderly people. I've seen that, you know, and you know, several hundred hours. It might take a year or two, but you know, I always think about, there's one of my clients, and she came, she was 82, but she came, she was actually working at a venue that we had here in Queensland, and just came in and was like, oh, what are you guys doing? She was bringing in some, you know, toilet paper and stuff for the venue. And we're like, oh, we're, you know, doing massage. We have a student clinic. If you want to come along. So she came along. This is going back probably 5 years. And she was so tight and varicose veins, and, you know, but she's been getting massage now for 5 years, and her doctors couldn't believe it. She's, you know, reversed a lot of the aging problems that she had. You know, but of course it's always better to, you know, but that's taken a long time, a bit, you know, even if we make 1 or 2% progress. But the doctor, her arthritis was, you know, she was about to go into a wheelchair, and then, you know, she's playing bowls and doing all sorts of stuff. So stuff like that is also really wonderful to see. But I always think it's better to treat people from, you know, if you can, from children. Stop the tension building up from a childhood, you know, and then keep them loose their whole life, and they're going to have a much better quality of life, and they're going to have a much longer duration of life, because tension to me is one of the biggest killers, because it stops the blood flow, it stops the nerves working, and where there's tension, toxins tend to build up more too, so
Mm.
we get all sorts of different problems. So yeah,
I
it's
think it's
exciting.
important. You think it's important to give massage to children? The younger, the better it is. Is that right? Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. I've been massaging my kids from the time they were born. Kids are born with tension. You know, it's a confined environment. You know, they can pick up kids can pick up tension and stress from what's going on in the. You know, they can, you know, if the parents are arguing, if there's, you know, car accidents, whatever it may be, kids can pick up that tension. They're not total. It's not like a totally immune situation where they are. You know, and then the birth process itself can create tension. You know. So kids are born with tension, and then you got growing pains, and then of course, you know, kids pick up on the environment. You know, like I was even still remember this one guy, and he had asthma. When I worked on him, he started having these emotional releases from the time his parents went through a divorce. They were arguing and fighting all the time. That's when he got asthma. So you think about it, like if a kid's in an environment where the parents are fighting and stressed, then they can stop. They don't want to breathe. You know, it's like you don't want to breathe. So he got asthma, and then all this emotion and memories came back as I was working on him from the time his parents went through the divorce. So there's a lot of problems you know, we pick up on our environment and things like that. And I've seen that in countless times, you know, as
Mm.
you're aware, you know, I mean, we pick up on things. So yeah, you know, like, you know, massaging through these times is better for the kids. You know, I personally have been through a divorce. Massage helped me through that particular situation and the stress involved, you know, letting go of the emotions and that sort of thing, you know. So countless times whenever you're going through a particularly stressful time, it's good just to, you know,
But
work
that's
out so
very.
those emotions don't build up. Go ahead.
It's so important to really have that said, because in our society we really tend to separate the mind and the body, when actually the body holds so much. And yes, all this tension from everyday life, from the stress, so, and a lot of people, you know, like coming 50, 60 years old, never been massaged before, and like you come like with a hammer and it's like bam,
Yeah,
bam.
that's it. The jackhammer, and you know, although sometimes you got to be also, you know, gentle and yin, because they won't let you in if you go, you know. So I always look at Chinese concepts of yin and yang when I'm approaching people. You know, sometimes you got to be very gentle, very sensitive. Other times you got to be quite firm and strong, and you know, that's again, I always say make the massage suit the person, not the person suit the massage. You know. And so we have all these tools in our tool bags and approaches. And sometimes that can be the way we talk to people. It can be the way, whether we crack a joke or whether we don't crack a joke, all these sorts of things. are designed, should be designed, around how are we going to help get this person into a relaxed state where they're deep breathing and can work with us, what we call a green light state. Right, because some people, they're not going to take you seriously if you're joking or whatever, so you got to be serious with them, right? And then they can rely, oh, okay, this guy's professional. Other people, if you're too serious, they like, especially like in Australia, as you know, the culture here is very much every second sentence is usually a joke of some sort, and if you don't joke, then people feel a bit uncomfortable with you, so in Australia, when you're working with like what we call tradies or truckies, different people, sometimes you kind of have to crack a few jokes and then they feel comfortable with you. So it's not just your approach to massaging people. It's also, you take into account their culture and who they are and that sort of thing. And how are you going to build what I call the bridge of trust with that person, so that they can just go, okay, I can just relax with this person. I trust them, and I can just deep breathe and let go of whatever it is without embarrassment, without feeling shy, or without feeling like judging, what I call a judgmental frame of mind over our own crap. We got to realize it's just our crap, and we're better off letting it go. And so that's actually a skill in itself. It's a bit like being a chameleon in some ways, relating to different people, and that's sometimes difficult, especially if that person's from another culture, or certain things you might not know how to kind of relate to that particular person and their cultural attributes or whatever it may be. So it requires a lot of flexibility, in my opinion, if you're trying to relate, especially in a multicultural type of situation.
Yeah.
I've seen that in my class. Like I always think, there's one class where I had a guy from East Timor, and I hadn't met anybody from East Timor before, and he didn't really relate too well with the Australians in the class, and the culture was completely different. I had to try and figure out, because I've never met anybody there from that culture, and it's like, you got to, okay, well, they're more serious there, or they're more, do you know what I mean? So it's like, all that's also part of it, and I find that fascinating, because like I like to travel and I like to be in different parts of the world, and I'm a multicultural person. My dad's Australian, my mom's British. I was born in Canada, lived in Africa, lived in Miami in America, so lived in Hawaii. And I kind of consider myself quite multicultural, but of course there's so many cultures in the world, right? So we got to try and figure out how to relate to a particular individual within even and their culture. So I find it interesting. Like, it's never boring, and that's why some massage therapists find it boring if they're just doing a routine with people. 5 strokes this way, 2 strokes that way. I would find that boring. But when you make the massage suit the person, it's not just like the physical massage. It's about trying to tune into that person, trying to work with that person, trying to get them to deep breathe, trying to get them to feel in a non-judgmental frame over letting go of emotions that are creating that tension in the first place. So it's very much an art form, in my opinion. Like, we've got scientific aspects to it, but the art form is the one that takes the predominating thing, rather than, technique is below art form. I'd rather have somebody who was very good at tuning into me work on me and only have 5 different techniques than have somebody who's technically very good but doesn't have the tuning in ability, or and I've experienced that with a lot of massages. You can figure out what are the qualities that make a good massage therapist, and that's something we try and teach people. And empathy is one of the most important ones. Without empathy, it's going to be just a technical thing. And when I mean empathy is tuning into a person, also perception is there. Perception of blockage, perception of what's the real person, and what is their blockage, or even their fake self is what I call it. And sometimes people are playing games with you, like maybe they've been playing games their whole lives, covering up some sort of emotion that they've got, by a fake thing. I'm okay, I'm this, or I'm a really funny guy, but underneath it, they're actually a really sad person.
Yeah.
You can see that even in, some comedians who have committed suicide, Robin Williams, or different people. Some people just, they can put on this thing of being funny, but underneath it, it's just a mask. And I see that with different things, all sorts of different things, whether it be anger. You get the passive aggressive people. I'm not angry, but they really are. So part of what we're doing is also being able to perceive, that's a huge part of it. Perceive what's really going on here, and not just buy into people's lies. Because I always say, the mind and a person can lie, and they often do. There's so many people, but the body doesn't. The body, you'll find things. It's like, well, why are you got this blockage here? It's, with emotions, it's often in the abdomen, but it could be in the hips. It could be anywhere. But a lot of it's abdominal tension, and there's always that point, especially one of the most powerful points is what I call the rock in the belly, or which is what we call the big toe belly bands. And so many people are holding on to so much stuff in there. And it doesn't lie. If it's tight, there's something going on in there,
Yeah.
So that's part of it too. And again, it's that working what I've specialized in, or what I've decided over the years, is only wanting to work with green lights, because I've spent a lot of time working with people who you want to help them get better, but if they don't want to get better, they won't, and you can't work on them. It's that old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So I don't know if you know that one. You heard that one in English? Yeah. So that's the whole thing. And that's something that I guess as I get older too, I don't have time for people. I don't want to work on people that don't really want to get better, because it's a waste of my time and a waste of theirs. And if you're confronting somebody about something that they don't want to be confronted about, they'll just get angry at you.
Yeah.
Like if they've got repressed anger and you're going, oh, you're angry. I had a friend of mine. I was like, oh, I think you got a lot of he just ended up yelling at me and go, I'm not fucking angry, And I was like, okay, sure, keep your delusion. You know what I mean? It's like, so that's if people want to be deluded, they're going to stay that way.
Yeah, well, it's this lie. I guess to start this work, we need to be ready to open the Pandora box and get rid of our own shit, basically, because otherwise, yeah, we just keep lying to ourselves, and yeah, we're never gonna be able to heal. Because
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah,
That's right. And it's a partnership model of medicine, So if the person, so that's the key thing too, is like, I don't really take it on. I've seen people can get quite, caught up in their ego about being a good healer or whatever, but really it's a partnership model of medicine. So it's, if the person doesn't want to work with you, you can't do anything, you know?
Mm.
So that's something now too. I'm more sort of like, okay, well, I'll work with the people that want to get better, and I can't be bothered with the people that don't. And there's going to be a lot of people then like that criticize the techniques, or criticize this, or criticize that. And these days I can't be bothered. Even on YouTube, I usually just delete their comments because I just can't be bothered,
Mm.
entering into debate with people and entering it. I know what we do works, and those people that want it can have it, and those people that don't, well, there's plenty of other stuff they can do.
That's
And
right.
you know what I mean? So I like, it's that, I guess a bit of cynicism with age, or
So
that's how I've
it's
changed a bit lately.
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you had like a green light, but someone like listening to you right now and never had a Raynor massage and maybe even never heard about, what would be the attribute, or what would be the main component of a Raynor massage, and like ready to, yeah, that sounds good to me. What would they expect in a session?
Again, it's an art form, so it really does depend on the therapist, of course, and you got to find that therapist that you gel with. But what the goal is to find and get rid of chronic residual tension wherever it is, and often, so we work along what we call bands. I got a chart behind me that, of different bands of tension. They're a little bit different than meridians. They're a bit different than sen lines. So in Japanese and Chinese medicine, they have bands, but they're using meridians. And Thai massage, they use sen lines, which is, the sen is like the life force.
Mm.
So my in Hawaii, they use different things, but not so much bands, but different approaches. And in Ayurvedic medicine, they have what they call nadis, or energy channels, as well. So I learned all these different approaches, but what I found is the bands are things that you can physically feel. So that's where I came up with the idea of bands. Like, I couldn't always feel every part of a meridian, but the bands do sometimes encompass meridians, but then they might be different. And there's a lot I can go into about where they are different. But basically, the bands of tension are ones that you can physically feel. And then, so how we get rid of tension is we work those bands from the very source of them, which is usually in the fingers or the toes. And
Mm.
then we follow it up, and the person breathes out whatever it is that's creating their tension in those bands. So that's what a person should expect from a good Raynor massage therapist. somebody who finds, first of all, finds and diagnoses where the person's tight, and then gets rid of that tightness. And you know, and again, it depends on, like, some therapists I might have trained early 20 years ago, you know, and I've learned a lot in 20 years. So the ones that I've trained more recently are probably going to know some of the what I've learned in the last 20 years. So, you know, when you're seeking out a Raynor therapist, it's got to be somebody you want to find that, you know, is well, kind of what I'd call up to date with their knowledge, but also he's going, you'll feel it. You'll feel it after, you should know after one treatment whether this person's going to be able to find and get rid of your tension. Their hands should speak for themselves. It's not even, you know, it's not even whatever things they've got up on the wall. It doesn't matter in a sense. The hands speak for themselves, you know, and the treatment speaks for themselves. You should feel. You won't always feel, you know, like some people might feel sick afterward, you know, because if they're holding a lot of toxins, like cigarette smokers in particular, people who've had drug issues, you know, there's a lot of things, people on poor diets. I've seen some people just feel really sick after a massage. So that doesn't mean the massage was bad. It means that the person had a lot of toxins in their body and that got stirred up. So actually, if the person continues with that process, then they'll hopefully get rid of their toxins and hopefully come to a point where they no longer want to put toxic substances into their body. I've had a lot of students even who have been smokers end up having like they get this cough and they cough up this phlegm and mucus that they say tastes terrible, and it makes them, and they know it's nicotine and the toxins from then they want to give up smoking, you know. So sometimes you can't always judge the massage from whether you feel better right away. Because we can have what we call a healing crisis, and that's where we feel worse before we get better. That could be physical, as I say, with toxins. It could be emotional. There could be old feelings come up. You could have old memories come up from childhood that may be uncomfortable. But in the end, if you clear these things out of your body, in the long run, you're going to feel better, and that's what we got to look at. But yeah, short term, a person can feel worse. The healthier they are, the less likely that is to occur. And I always say to drink plenty of water afterward to minimize the toxins that can be stirred up. But you know, you'd feel, if you can work with a therapist and they can feel your tension and get rid of it, that is the key. And then a better therapist just gets rid of more tension quicker. And it comes down to a point where a really good therapist, most of the time, they're working just at what you can, the person can handle, not their limitations in getting rid of tension, but what the person can actually breathe into and let go of without it being overwhelming. We call it regulated release. And with people, like I said before, people are very toxic smokers, and then we want to make that release more moderate so that we're not overwhelming them, because the kidneys and that sort of thing can only handle so many, the liver, you know, the body's organs can only handle so much processing of toxins as well. And also the mind. I've had people where I did like an 8-hour treatment on them, and they're like, I didn't know who I was after that, you know, because they were living a fake life. They weren't tuned in. And so that can be also, you know, confronting, where a person has to retake stock of who they are after they got rid of this crap that they've been, you know, the acting and the, you know what I mean, the whole bullshit, what I call the bullshit, of not being true to themselves, you know. And that so on an emotional, spiritual level, that can also take a bit of time for some people. They're only ready for that journey back to truth and back to their self, you know, at a certain pace, you know. Confronting certain things can be scary, and if you confront a whole lot of things all at once, it can be a little bit overwhelming for some people, you know. So a good therapist regulates the pace of the treatment too. So that's what a person wants to look for in a therapist, you know. We do have a listing where people we've trained have a listing when people can find a therapist. That's raynormassage.com/graduates. So people can find a therapist. But I always say, you know, like it's an art form, and you know, you always want to make sure that you gel with that practitioner, and that, you know, because it's also an individual thing. We're not just training people to be robots, you know. We're not training people to, you know. So there's the art form. There's the sense of aloha in their heart, the sense of love and care that they have for other people. You know, which is, as I say, in Hawaiian massage and Hawaiian philosophy, is so important, you know. So make sure that person's coming from a state of care and love. And that's something we can teach, but we can't, like, you know. Yeah, we can only assess that in a certain way. So seek out a good therapist. You'll know a good therapist. They'll gel with you. And some people, it's just not everybody gets on well with each other. That's so take your time, figure out who you can work with, check out 3 or 4 different people until you find one that you resonate with. And once you start to feel that, yeah, I can work with this person, then go through the process of finding and getting rid of all of your chronic residual tension, even if that takes 40 hours, if that takes 60 hours. It's the best investment you can ever make in your life, because you'll live longer and you'll live a happier life, not just longer, but happier. So what's more important than that? It's like I call it renovation. We're renovating the human body, mind, and soul, so that, we can have a better experience in this life. Because being full of tension is a bummer. Basically, the more tension you have, the more suffering you're undergoing, whether that be physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever, or just being out of touch with your spirit while you're on this planet. So get rid of it. Once you've found somebody that can help you, invest that time and money. Yeah, it might cost you, but it's the best investment you'll ever make, because once you've gone through the excavation process of getting rid of all the tension that you've built up over this lifetime or wherever, maybe another one, who knows, then you're just in maintenance, and all you have to do with when you're getting a massage is get rid of the tension that you build up over 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month or something. And that's easy. I mean, it can still be emotional if you had an emotional time, somebody you love has passed away or something. People, we have emotional things that can happen. Then it can still, but it's the best thing to get rid of all of that. That's why I always say, for nurses, for people, police, paramedics, so many of them are out on PTSD because they've got this chronic buildup of emotional stress, like firemen pulling dead people out of cars. You know what I mean? Like, in 1 week, that can still be enormously stressful, and that's what they do for a living. So those kind of people, in my opinion, should, first of all, yeah, have the excavation massage, but they might need a maintenance massage every week, just to deal with what they've seen that week. So whereas other people might not need that maintenance massage so often because their life is not so stressful. It's at that particular time. So I always recommend with excavation massage, people have as much as they can. So maybe that might be for some people that are really committed and not so toxic, that might be 2 3 hour treatments in a week. So that if you have 50 hours work to do, within 3 months, you're completely renovated. But other people, like I said, the more toxins they have, the more, you take it at a slower pace. It might be 2 1 hour treatments. It might be 2 2 hour treatments. But if you do much less than an hour a week, it's going to be very slow. It's still going to make progress, hopefully, as long as you're not building up more tension in that week than what you're getting rid of. But it's going to be slow. It might take 6 months, that sort of thing. So I encourage people that are healthy to get, a lot of treatment while they're excavating. Then once you're completely tension free and the therapist goes, I can't find any more tension, you're ready for maintenance. And then you figure it out. Like, should I get one once a week? Should I get once a month? Should I get two? If you're coming a long way away, you might want to get a 2 hour treatment every month. So you've let a little bit of tension build up, but in 2 hours, the therapist should then be able to clear out all of that chronic tension. So it's not so chronic anymore. It's not like concrete. With some people, it's like dealing with concrete, right? It shouldn't be like that, and it shouldn't hurt that much too, right? No. What really hurts is the chronic tension, not the stuff that you build up over a week or a month or something. It shouldn't. There's exceptions. Some people have like MS and things like that, where they're going to always, everything's painful in their body. But for the majority of people, maintenance massage should just generally feel pretty good. It's kind of relaxing. It's not, and it might be a little, like I said, might be a bit of emotion. If you've had an emotional time, it should come out really quick. People that have just had an emotional experience, it usually comes out really quick. Whereas if it's embedded and been there for 30 years, 40 years, it takes a bit, it takes a fair bit more treatment. So that's what we do. We excavate a person, then we maintain them. And like I say, that's probably, I personally think it's one of the best investments you can ever make, like, in your life, because you're going to earn more. Like, a healthy person is going to earn more money. They're going to be more clear. They're, whether they're doing their own business or working for somebody else, so financially, even if people go, oh, I can't afford it, but then they can afford this, or, oh, I can afford getting drunk on the weekend, or I can afford, or even a holiday. Well, this is better than any holiday. A lot of people are just going on holiday now just to get them to go to Thailand or Bali or somewhere where they can get a few hours of massage. But if you've got a really good therapist who can help you, which is, how we're trying to train people, especially our advanced students, but all of our students, and it comes down, everybody's an individual, and some people are better than others, and some people are really good, as teaching. Some people are really good after a diploma course. Some
Mm.
people are okay and they just need more experience. But the whole thing of what we're trying to do with training people too is to get them to be finding and getting rid of tension. And then over years of experience, they just should get better and better and better, and more training from us. They just get better and better at that simple goal, finding and getting rid of tension in a wide variety of people, being able to work with a wide variety of people and get rid of them, get rid of that tension, not get rid of them. But
Yeah.
some people you do want to get rid of, but I mean, not have as a client, but most people you're just trying to get rid of their tension.
But but as a way you were saying earlier too, as a practitioner, it's important to also get rid of our own tension, because this is how we're getting better too, like, and tuning more with the person.
Mm. I use that analogy too of like somebody working, like I've been to a few caves, in national parks, and sometimes for me, caves can be a little bit scary, they're underground. And if you've got a tour guide that's never been into a cave and they tell you go into that cave, you're going to be like, well, maybe not, but if the tour guide's I've been in there, it's fine, here's a light, we go in there. So it's the same when it's like shining a light on ourselves, right? Like the more we shine that light on ourselves, the better therapists we're going to be, because we're not scared of releasing stuff. We're not scared of the demons in us coming out. We're not scared of whatever it is, our sadness or our anger, whatever it may be, because, and I've seen that in my own development. I still remember sometimes people shining like a mirror at me, when their emotions are coming up. If I haven't dealt with those emotions, 20, 30 years ago, I still remember the experience of going, whoa, that's confronting, for me, and I'm not quite ready there, and then I deal with that emotion, then I'm a better practitioner because I'm not scared of that transformation. So absolutely, we want to, as therapists, we want to really strive toward being tension free ourselves. And of course, that's not always, it's hard to find a good therapist, even for us therapists, and it's quite difficult for us to work on ourselves sometimes. We can, but sometimes it's hard to work on yourself while deep breathing and allowing emotions to come out. I
Yeah.
haven't mastered that skill, sometimes I can, but it's not
Yeah.
always easy. So if you can find a good therapist, that's fantastic. It's like one of the most important things in life, um, because that person is going to help you stay centered, so yeah, find a good therapist and then clear out your tension, and you're going to be a better therapist, and then maintain yourself, because as therapists we also need to maintain, because we're in a bit of a profession like the nurses and the doctors and the people, the fire people, because it's intense working with people sometimes, and we pick that energy up from
Yeah.
people. So we also, we need to clear that, whether we're really good at not picking up energy and only picking up 1 or 2%, or we're picking up 10%, that's going to build up in us. So we need to get good treatments ourselves, so that's not
Mm.
the reason I started training everybody, by the way, just to get a good massage. But I thought of sometimes I think that. But yeah, no, it's to me, it's like it's a key to a good life, is how I would describe it. It's one of the keys. Obviously, there's different aspects, our spiritual life, and our different practices that we do in our nutrition. Nutrition's really important as well. I can't underestimate that. And I use things like flower essences and things like that, which are also Dr. Bach really. Dr. Bach was actually an amazing influence upon me. When I first learned naturopathy, I had to learn about his flower essences and how his flower essences work at how different conditions of the mind or soul affect the body, and affect people's health. And he really believed that all disease came from the mind. And so he came up with different flowers that affected how people feel. He'd put them in sunlight in a bowl of water for a day, and then preserve them in brandy, and then you take them, and it can really affect your it brings you back to your true self as well. And I was quite skeptical when I first heard about them, and I was like, oh, I don't know about this. But then I started using them more and more. I'm like, wow, how I felt yesterday. I took the flower essence, or within a couple of hours, I feel quite different, And that made me also realize how important the mind is about tension in the body. And I've been using those for like 35 years or something now. And I found them amazing, and just the whole philosophy behind it, actually made me appreciate gardening and flowers and things like that more. And our connection with nature, because I am a naturopath, so I use I'm more holistic and integrative with different approaches, But he certainly was an amazing influence upon my understanding of the mind body spirit connection, And I think he was an absolute genius for his time in the 1930s in England, quite a conservative time, and just how his whole philosophy. So I use his stuff as well. I sometimes even he'll have like dandelion flower essence, which helps with stiff musculature, and for some people, and the dandelion leaves and things like help also with the liver, and detoxing. And in Chinese medicine, tightness in the body relates to the liver, and I've found, and repressed anger, of course. So I found with some people, no matter how much I massage them, I couldn't get them to release. But if you give them the flower essences, or you give them, maybe even some dandelion, I make a dandelion chai with people. That helps release the liver, which then helps release the emotions, which helps release the tension. Because if ever you've gone up against somebody like with a tight jaw, or really tight musculature in their body, and you work them, and it's like, whoa, they just don't want to let go, And it's because they're holding on to anger and control issues. And once you can let the mind let those go, then the body will let go. So I use integrative approaches, not just with massage therapy, or, but I use like, okay, how am I going to help this person from a holistic naturopathic perspective, and herbs, flower essences, and nutrition are my other tools that I like to use to help people.
Oh wow, yeah. I've seen a few videos where you do muscle testing on people.
Muscle testing has been amazing, and that's something else that Carol Starr taught me originally, was using kinesiology, which is, a lot of chiropractors use it to diagnose, which is a weak muscle, to do with the subluxations in the spine and things like that. But I use it for diagnosing flower essences, and for diet. You can diagnose foods, which foods are good for you, and that's amazing too, because it's like, is your chi flow flowing through that particular muscle, and if you've got a strong yes or no, then you can use that to diagnose which particular medical substance is good for you, whether that be a flower essences, a food, or a herb, or that sort of thing. So yeah, I find that really good as well, and I've done a lot of work. She actually taught me a lot of stuff, even to work on, getting rid of trauma from different past lives, and breathing, and this life. It was pretty fascinating stuff. So I find kinesiology, and I did Touch for Health 1 and 2 as well, which was also really interesting. So yeah, there is a lot of fascinating things, and like I said, I don't want to discard the benefits of stretching and of yoga and Tai Chi and all those kind of things. I think those are usually also fantastic for opening up the chi flow in the body, and anything to help the mind. I know you do hypnosis as well, and that's also can be very beneficial at times, So whatever's going to help, basically, with that final goal, is how I look at it. We'll use it, the final goal, find and get rid of tension, find and get rid of any blockage, whether that be emotional, and get the person truly aligned with who they really are. And that's the goal. So that's how I've simplified even learning like when I had to learn Ayurvedic medicine, we had to learn all these Sanskrit terms for different things. And then Chinese medicine, I was learning Chinese terms, Japanese medicine, Japanese terms, Hawaiian terms, you learn in Hawaiian, and my brain just wasn't quite very good at I still have difficulty, I'm not really good with
it is what is actually good with your technique is that, as you're saying, the bends are physical, and it's really something that you feel. So at the beginning it's a bit hard to follow, really, but then when you get used to it, it just makes sense, and it's just easy, and it's magical, because really there is something about it where you at the beginning of the foot, and then you're working on the big toe, and then suddenly they feel a ping in the neck, and
oh yeah, it is amazing.
hilarious.
And like you said, it's not just a theory, you know what I mean? It's not just, there's a theory of meridians, and the different people have different theories. This is something you can feel. Everybody, you can feel it, and so it's no longer theory. This is fact,
Right.
that people have these bands, So yeah, it is amazing. It's mind blowing, really. I mean, the more I learn about people and nature and the world, and of course, you just get more and more blown. You know, the mind becomes more blown away, and you just have to become humble. And that is one thing that I notice is the difference between like Eastern philosophy and Western. You know, when I was studying Western philosophy at university, it's almost like Descartes, where I think, therefore I am. Well, no, you could not think and you still are. But it's all about the mind and understanding this entire world. You know what I mean? That's Western, whereas Eastern philosophy is just being at peace with who you are as part of the world, and not trying to understand it with the mind and the intellect. And that's something that by studying both systems of philosophy, I gravitated more toward the Eastern approach and the harmony. You can see that in some of the Japanese things of like doing the tea ceremony and things. It's about calming the mind. I noticed that when I was at university and I was first learning even Tai Chi, which is a Chinese martial art. But you had to calm your mind right down to be able to do Tai Chi because it's slow. And back then, my mind was way too fast to do anything like. I was like, I'm thinking at 100 miles an hour, and this was driving me crazy. And that's something that I really had to learn over the years and become more understanding of that Eastern approach of just being at peace and perception.
Mm.
Um, and that's even my Shiatsu teachers used to say, oh, Westerners work way too fast.
Mm.
And when you feel that when you have a practitioner that's like caught up in their head, and they're working too fast, and they're trying to, it's their mind instead of deep breathing and just working, tuning into the life force, and that's again something that I really give credit to, like my teacher Yujiro Ogawa, who's in Tokyo. I'm still friends with him, and he just I realized, like wow, it's a cultural thing as well, um,
And
we're
it's when the release happens, when the healing crisis happens, like because it's often, yeah, I've seen you in so many courses and also online where you just put your hand on the belly, like 'cause sometimes you do the pumping, but you now I sort of kind of understand when you stop, and there is this moment where you need to stop and just slow down, and it's this when there is this huge release and the person's like,
mhm,
finally I've got this time to let it. And
yeah.
this is just incredible because
Mhm.
it's simple technique, but it's far out
It's
so many.
far out and it's so
Yeah, so,
profound.
so
It's the
beautiful.
yin and the yang. You've got to be able to understand the yin and the yang to be a good practitioner. And some people think it's all yang and it's about me doing it and all that. And it's not. It's about tuning into the nature of the person. I mean, it's like, and they're breathing and they're really and they're letting go. The walls crumbling, I call it. And that fort that they have around their heart or whatever,
Yeah.
just starting to let go, and then all the crap all that as that fort dissolves, that's all coming out.
Mm.
And so it is just, we just have to, I think, being humble and just keeping that perspective of just awe and reverence, I call it, for nature and for life, because it is such an amazing thing. And when you have that, not trying to, I got to understand it with my mind. I got to because that's what a lot of the massage schools, they think, I'll understand the human being by knowing all the Latin names for the muscles, and knowing all the bones, knowing and they've forgotten about the spirit. They've forgotten about the chi, which is the most important thing. Because I always say dead people don't pay anyway. Um, but it's like, it's the life, because we're all going to die. It's about, but in the meantime, it's like, what kind of quality of life are we going to live? And that's what I try and emphasize, is that the spirit, you know,
Yeah.
but the body and the spirit are connected. The mind and the body and the spirit are all connected, until we die, of course, and then there's the disconnect. But while we're here on this planet, it's so important just to create that unity, that harmony.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so yeah, amazing to hear this philosophy because behind us, you're always showing the techniques and you're the joking around and it's so good to hear. And I really hope that people will really understand the depths of, from when you started your journey to really understand how, yeah, deep this philosophy technique that you've created, because it's so holistic, it's so powerful, so beautiful.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah, so I really hope that, yeah, our YouTubers will
Yeah,
understand
yeah.
and say, wow, okay, yeah, now I understand even more.
Yeah, I think sometimes, I do joke around, or sometimes in my videos, I work people quite hard, or people have these, even yourself, you have these, you've had, and I've had it, sometimes people are like, wow, he fucking screamed, he's
Yeah.
really, whatever. And people can judge the release. Oh, you made that person cry. No, no, I accessed their, people don't understand what we're trying to do. We accessed what's there that's unhealthy, or restricting the person and keeping, and then they let it go, and that's the important thing. And as I say, it's like, I do come, having spent a lot of time in Australia, we do joke around quite a lot over here, and I've absorbed that, and it can be healthy at times, to have a good laugh,
Yeah.
but at the same time, that people might not understand the seriousness of what we're trying to do, because there's humor, and and I think it is really good that people understand this is a lot of depth going into this, and it's we're at a fortunate stage, in history, where I've been able to bring, also get knowledge from different parts of the world, whether it be from India, whether it be from China, Japan, Thailand, Hawaii. I've been fortunate enough, and also I've been also fortunate in a sense not to be attached to one culture. Like I noticed, even when I trained with some people, like with Shiatsu, for example, especially maybe if they're Japanese, it's hard for them to they get really into the fact that I'm Japanese, and Shiatsu is good. But if you're not, and like, because I don't really care like what nationality I am, I can go, well, I like this about Shiatsu, but I like this about Thai massage, I like this about Hawaiian, and it just becomes I can bring the best out of each, what I consider the best out of each of them, without being attached to or identifying. I call it false identifying as one particular culture. Sometimes people on YouTube are like, oh, is he Australian? Is he American? Is he Canadian? And in fact, my accent even changes when I go to different countries.
Oh, really? Does
I
it?
always, yeah, yeah, yeah. I notice as soon as I'm back in Canada, I'm starting to say a and out and about, house and all that. And then I
Funny.
go to America and I'm not swearing as much as I do in Australia. I'm like, oh, people don't. I know I had to really like, oh,
Yeah, you haven't swear much. Actually, it's probably swore more than you today.
yeah, because I was in America for so long, they straightened me out.
Right.
Even so one of my, I think it was my sister-in-law, she was saying, yeah, yeah, Australians are known to swear like sailors, and I'm like, oh, really? Sailor? Yeah. But it's sort of like, I was like, well, I didn't realize the sailors swore as much as they did in Australia. But yeah, over here it's like, yeah, so I got used to that, and, so I changed,
Yeah, yeah.
um, and but that's just part of, I'm not really attached to being Australian or Canadian, or I can look at them and kind of go, there's good and bad about each of the different cultures,
Yeah.
and I think I'm fortunate in that way,
Yeah, yeah.
having grown up in different parts of the world, and different, and having a multicultural family, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so that's also for me, keeping an open mind, not being kind of falsely, that I can learn these different things and I can change who I am. Like I've seen a massive change on me from the time I was, at university, and that's 35 years ago or whatever it was. Just my whole, you know, I feel like I've changed cultures, you know what I mean? And I've seen, and living in Hawaii, in the most native part of Hawaii for 8 or 10 years too, it taught me an awful lot. Like, because there was, in Hawaii, white people are called haoles, and a lot of, like, around where I lived, every 80% of people were native Hawaiian, and 10% were like Micronesian or Samoan. And if people came in, a lot of the white people, you could tell they'd come in, like I call them, like really in their head, in their mind, and they'd also be judging. They think they were superior to Hawaiians or whatever, and they basically just got beaten up. It wasn't, and so makaha translates as fierce in Hawaiian, and people will come and they come at the Hawaiians with this attitude, like, I'm better than you because I'm white, and they just get beaten up. It was just really quick. And so the area where we live was, but I could see it. I was like, a lot of white people in our culture really value the mind, and education, like have in the intellectual aspect of it. That's what I learned from the Canadian RMTs and how they've over intellectualized it. Whereas in Hawaii, it was more like, what's important is that you come from your heart and you show respect to other people. and that's part of aloha, and that's part of how people live there. Like they're really in what I call like their base chakra and their heart chakra, you know. And for me, that was an amazing learning experience. Even like, as a man, for me, like the Australian ideas of masculinity for me weren't serving me, and I see like a lot of suicide in Australia from men, and this kind of fake bravado kind of stuff. Whereas I felt like in Hawaii, I learned that I can be a man by being, I can be soft but powerful as a man, and sort of have the heart open, but also be a warrior without, and be tough, but without being hard, and so I learned a lot from, my time in Hawaii, and it wasn't like in Waikiki or whatever. It was in the real part of Hawaii, Waianae Coast and that sort of thing. And people could look at it and go, oh, people are poor there or whatever. But, yeah, that was an amazing learning experience for me as a person to really be able to balance also my yin and my yang as an individual, and again, I don't really think that certain aspects of Anglo-Saxon ways that men are brought up are healthy, and I see that not just obviously Australia, it's very pronounced, but you can see it in England sometimes, you can see it in America, not to the degree. Australia has definitely got a large part of it, but I was like, no, I don't want to be like that, you know what I mean? And then I can also then help other people, other men in particular, but other women. I can, just in their own journey toward wholeness, But sometimes, yeah, I really think in growing as a human being, sometimes you got to look at your own culture and you got to go, well, that's fucking not functional, Sorry, I'm swearing again now. But that's not functional. I want to get rid of that,
Yeah.
And so I want to be me. I don't want to be an Australian. I don't want to be a Canadian. I don't want to be an American. I don't want any of these things to define who I am. I want to be me, And if that fits in, if certain aspects of a culture are healthy, fine. That's nice. If the culture supports you as a person and your growth, then fine. But if it doesn't, get rid of it. I even knew a lot of people in Hawaii who were Japanese and who didn't like being. They moved away from Japan because there's a saying in Japan that if the nail sticks out, hammer it down. And that's that whole idea of cultural. To be Japanese, you have to be like this. But you get it in England, you get it. I'm sure you get it in France. You get it all over the world. Certainly get it in Australia.
It's such an interesting concept because indeed it really has a big impact in our life. And also, yeah, when we start working on ourselves, not only we release our own issues and problems, but also, yeah, there is like a collective a cleansing, and that is happening at the same time when we work on ourselves, because indeed we are part of a society, of a culture, a country. And yeah, so it's also interesting to have, and to understand that when we start working on ourselves, it's not only we heal ourselves, but also, yeah, the culture we're in. And so it's funny.
And sometimes that can be confronting for other people,
Yeah.
like, it's like the whole idea that, like, I was talking about this, men don't cry, right? Like it was very strong in Australia in my father's generation, and people didn't, and sometimes when you're working on people and they have a lot of grief, they don't let it out, because they were taught as children, don't cry, or women don't get angry, or whatever it may be, right? And so it becomes all, what's that?
Suck it up cupcake here is
Yeah,
what we
suck it up, cupcake. Yeah, that's right. It's all like it's all
hate.
repression and stuff. So
Yeah.
all of these things we have to confront sometimes in our journey toward wholeness, and we have to go, well, that's no longer healthy for me. It's like somebody else has given me a definition of what it means to be a man. If they say men don't cry, I'm like, well, who are you to tell me who I am? Or this, or Japanese people shouldn't do this, or
Yeah.
Australians are like this. Who are you to tell me who I am? Because otherwise you're living you're disempowering yourself and letting somebody else tell you who you should be, and so it's that combination of psychological healing with, like you say, sociological healing. When we look at, that was one of the other things I studied at university, was sociology or social anthropology, and looking at different societies and different, when you heal yourself, you, like you say, you have an impact upon that society as well. That society is trying to impact you, but
Yeah.
you're wanting to have a positive impact on the rest of your society to help it to evolve and grow, and if it's got unhealthy things, sometimes that encounters opposition, but you got to stay strong, in who you are if it's a healthier approach. So it is fascinating, the idea of, heal yourself, heal the planet, and looking at, healing yourself and healing your society. I mean, we see that, like, we could look at all these stupid wars that are going on today. I mean, people are hating each other because of their nationality. They don't even know each other. I mean, there's that, I always look at that thing about World War I, where there was the Christmas truce, and the German, the I think it was the French and the Scottish and the Germans all got together and had a game of football, and they were like, well, why are we fighting each other? It's because of other people want them to fight instead of them being true to themselves and going, hey, I'm not going to fight a war that I don't believe in. They were always taught to disempower themselves. I have a bunch of theories about why men aren't supposed to cry. It's because they're not supposed to be in touch with their heart, and because they're supposed to be soldiers that do whatever their officers tell them. And that's very common in the Anglo-Saxon and a lot of European traditions, and you can look at World War I as an example. My grandfather was in there in the British Army. How destructive that is when people can't come back to their heart and go, no, I'm not going to do what you say just because you told me to. I'm not going to kill that person just because you told me to. That person's also spiritually my brother, my sister, and so it's very important, because we can lead to these stupid wars that we're seeing today, Russia, Ukraine, the Palestine, Israel. People aren't recognizing the spirit in each other, and they're not exercising aloha and love and respect for each other. And then so many people are dying, so many people are suffering, so and false identifying me, my tribe, my group of people, my nationality. You guys are, we're the best, you're the worst, and it's just so toxic. It's destructive, and what it could lead to nuclear war if we're not careful. So the complete destruction of everybody on this planet. I mean, that's how dangerous these things are when they're not dealt with, and people don't know how to come from aloha and love and respect for each other, and that's what I think massage is so good at practicing. You learn to care for each other, and of course, it's one of the qualities. You mentioned what are the qualifications. I know we were talking about that. Well, to me, one of the most important qualifications to become a massage therapist is about love and care for each other. And when I talk about love, I'm talking about the love in the highest form. When they talk about with Greek, they've got the agape, philos, and eros, and I'm talking about more, the agape and philos type of love, care and love and heart, and if you don't have that, you shouldn't really get into massage, because you could be actually somebody who doesn't have that, could be a dangerous therapist, or they could be a sleazy therapist. I've had to deal with people that have been sleazy, and I've, appear in court against them and all that sort of stuff. They're misusing, I call them wolves in sheep's clothing, using massage as some way to, for their own benefit, to exploit people, whether that be sexually or controlling or ego or whatever. But we always, that's why it's so important that we practice coming from our heart. We work on ourselves, and we care about other people. And that is the most important qualification, because somebody could have a very low intellect. I've got friends with Down syndrome, and just because they're coming from their heart, when they touch you, it's healing, because it's that transference of energy. It's kind of like, I've done a little bit of Reiki and stuff, but I don't really know all the symbols and things. But I think the most important thing is when you touch somebody, it's like a connection from your heart to your hand, and your spirit to your hand. It's the energy, and that you don't need to have a high intellect for that. You can be very low intellect. You don't need to understand all the Latin names to do that. You just have to care. And then you come from your heart, and then you could start massaging and finding knots and bands and, building all upon that. But that is like the foundation stone upon which everything else works from, because somebody who doesn't have that, but has all the technical knowledge, again, I still feel like, it could be dangerous. Like, why are you massaging? What's your motivation? So that's the key thing. If anybody wants to get into this profession, if you care about people, then that's the most important thing. And if you don't, go do something else.
I love that. And that's great to be said.
That really is a qualification, because it's not about knowing, and that I guess the next qualification is that you, as an individual, want to be a green light and heal your own stuff. That's your next qualification. Because if you don't, again, you probably shouldn't be in this profession. Because if you don't have that passion to kind of heal and let go, you shouldn't be really trying to help other people do that. So those are the two things: care for other people, but also a willingness to confront your own issues and go, yes, I have this. So, and then willing to let it go. I always talk about it's like being in Alcoholics Anonymous, you know. And as far as I understand the group, they make it, first of all, you have to admit you're an alcoholic before you actually are in the group. Because if you're not an alcoholic, why are you there? And they don't want people to, you know. So for us, it's like we have to admit we have tension, we have shit, we have, you know, unless you're in that 1 or 2 per, you know, 1 out of 1,000 that really don't, and you're being honest, most people have it, right? And you have to admit that you have it first, and then go, I want to get rid of it. So that's actually a qualification. It's a qualification to be a patient or a client, but it's also a qualification to be a therapist. Because if you're not a good client, then how can you be a good therapist? You know, that's my opinion. You know, so that's the qualifications, and then the rest of it's easy. We can teach you the skills. We can teach you if you have those 2 things. We can teach you. You know, it doesn't really even matter what language you speak. We can always translate things. You know, and you know, the getting a massage speaks for itself. The YouTube videos speak for themselves, but you know, definitely receiving it and going on your own journey, I think, is a key thing to becoming a better therapist. Because you know, there's different ways that you can understand and learn about massage. One of them is to receive it yourself and go through that journey. You go, wow. I mean, I remember some of the most profound massages I've got 30 years later, and what I learned from them. They were like, wow, I learned that. Oh my gosh, that guy's perception, or wow, that spot, you know. So you learn from that, and then you learn also from doing it, and you learn from watching somebody, you know, like if you watch somebody do it, you get a different perspective on it. You know, oh wow, I didn't, you know. And then, you know, doing it yourself, and then learning through your mistakes as well. Sometimes you go, oh, you know, I always, for years, and I still do to a certain extent, I analyze a treatment. If it didn't go according to what I thought it should have, you know, it wasn't as successful, I go, why wasn't it successful? You know, was it me? Was it them? Was it just we didn't work together? Did I not find the right spot? You know, so the treatments that I wasn't as successful at, I think about a lot. And then if I get that opportunity to work on that person again, I think, oh, I should have done this. I'll do this time, and then see if it works. And if it's not that person, it might be somebody else with a similar kind of condition or personality or whatever it may be. And then I'm like, I get excited. You know, I want to try this. So I'm always thinking about, or you know, not just intellectually thinking, but just trying to go, how could I have done better? Sometimes I might even do a prayer. I might do like a little thing. How can I help this person better? To, you know, to try and go into the more spiritual aspect of things. You know, and maybe I get an insight. That happens sometimes for me as well. You know, and I go, oh, that's cool. That's really exciting. You know, and I'll try that. You know, so you can like channel. You know, like Dr. Bach channel, different people channel, even the chiropractor guy that set up chiropractor, you know, he was like a spiritualist that channeled a dead doctor and taught him all about chiropractic, you know, which is interesting, you know, and I've had experiences like that a bit as well, not particular individuals, but like just where I get messages or whatever, you know, how I can help people. So if you have that intention, it's kind of like, it's amazing what can happen. And to me, it's all about that intention, you know. How can I help this person?
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. I think it's the beginning of a series of different interviews, because I mean, everything that you've been saying, I'm like, oh my God, we could go that way, and what about this subject? And I mean, so also people who are listening to, if there are anything you would like Brandon to talk about, anything you would have any answers to, just put that in comment, and then we can build more interview around that. And because I mean, listening to Brandon,
it's hard to shut me up. You know what it's like.
That's right.
Once I get going, you know, this is my
That's
passion,
right. But
my
it's
life.
fascinating because it's always, it's there is a new insight, and it's, oh yeah, I didn't think that way, and does that make sense? And I mean, you know, it's about an hour and a half, and it's like, whoa.
Yeah. We're just getting started, and you know, but yeah, let's
That's
do that. Let's do some more. Happy
right.
to share. You know,
Yeah.
you know, like I want to, you know, share this knowledge, especially, you know, one day I'm going to be out of this world, you know, and you know, I want it to all be recorded, and you know, just share my learning, basically. You know, it took me a long time. Some people go, oh, you got this gift or whatever. I'm like, well, yeah, but I kind of worked on it too, you know, because I remember when I first started doing shiatsu, and people are like talking about chi and talking about, and I was like, I don't feel anything, you know what I mean? So I don't know if it's a gift as much as I worked on it, you know. Probably a gift as well, you know. I gotta, yeah, giving all credit to, but the gift was had to be uncovered, you know. um and I think everybody who's got tuned into life force and tuned into their heart can have that gift of sensitivity and love and tuning in. It's just uncovering it, you know. But that was my journey, uncovering that, you know.
Yeah.
So happy to share whatever, you know. Like I say, just ask me a few questions, and it's hard to get me to shut up. So
Yeah, there was one question I wanted to ask, but I will keep it. But it's just about the tools to really, because I don't know, it's fascinating, and there is so
oh
much to
yeah,
talk about. But
and
that's
that's been
for
a lot of
next
my
time.
learning on a
Yeah,
practical level for the last 10
that's
years
right.
is the chopsticks and the tools and all that. So let's do another one on that.
Yeah, and
Thank you very much for organizing this, Lily. It's been a pleasure.
yeah, it was really nice, and yeah, I think it's the beginning of a cool journey.
Absolutely. And I think from you're going to also interview some of our other teachers and students and things like that on their
Yeah,
journeys as well.
anyone that's been experiencing Renault, go for it. Come and contact me.
Absolutely. Yep. All right. Well, thank you
Awesome.
very much.
All right, cool. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye.